Recording, recording, notes. No, I was ready. Okay, and if you need to stop, pause, or do anything like that, just tell me because I can always cut things out in post edit.
Sure.
So don't worry about that. If you stumble on something, tell me. I'll make a mark, and we'll be able to go back to it.
Okay.
And we'll cut it all out. But otherwise, we'll just keep it loose, and
Yep.
We'll start now. All right. Welcome to the latest episode of In the Ring with Sumo Heavy. I'm your host, John Suter. With me is our writer, research, and one of my faithful co-hosts on the other podcast that we run, the E-Commerce Minute, Brittany Blackman. Hello, Brittany.
Hello.
Hello. And with us today on the show is Gertrude Allen. Gertrude has 2 decades of experience growing consumer-facing businesses in the U.S. and Europe and is the CEO of PetPlate, an early-stage direct-to-consumer brand in the fast-growing human-grade pet food category. No spoilers here. We'll let Gertrude tell the rest of her story herself. Gertrude, welcome to the show.
Thank you, John. Nice to be here today.
So let's get started. We're going to let you do your origin story. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your background.
Sure. So born and raised in New York, went to NYU and graduated with a degree in journalism and I specialized in public relations, and quickly found out that I really wanted to spend more time in marketing. So I had an opportunity to move to Europe in the 90s and work for a large marketing agency over there, and worked really across Europe, Middle East, and Africa, which was just great exposure to different cultures and obviously, many different businesses, mostly in the CPG world. And I gravitated towards food and beverage. When I came back to the US, I started to get involved with retail, food retail. So worked for a brand called Tasty Delight. We grew that business, expanded it across the US, and then sold it to a private equity firm. And that's really where I cut my teeth in investing and had the opportunity to work with some terrific investors and really sort of understood the power of investing in small businesses and medium-sized businesses and what it can do, in terms of the growth and eventual exits. So kind of leaped over into the investing world and joined a company called Brand Project. So an early stage consumer venture fund with really a bias towards investing in subscription commerce. So brands that, consumer brands that were sold digitally native platforms, sold online to the consumer. But the thesis was like a repeat revenue base is really really exciting and great for growth. And so we invested in companies like Freshly, Daily Harvest, Persona, and where I got really involved, at the time I got involved with the fund, we were looking to make an investment in the human grade dog food space, and we chose PetPlate. We got involved with Ronaldo Webb, the founder, and really liked what he was doing. And as part of that role, I played as an investor in the business. I also really tried to add some value in terms of bringing my background in human food to bear on this new category of pet food, all human grade ingredients. So, kind of just provided some high level guidance in terms of the manufacturing, the marketing, et cetera. And 6 months in as an investor, I was asked by the board, which includes Ronaldo Webb, the founder, if I wanted to partner up on that business exclusively and help Ronaldo grow the business. And so I joined PetPlate in April of 2017 as their CEO, and we're working very closely with Ronaldo ever since, coming up on 3 years that I'm inside the company, and we've grown it quite a bit. We've raised a couple of rounds of funding, which has allowed us to grow the company, the number of employees. We'll probably be at about 25 people by the end of this year, and we service, we sell the product into every state in the U.S. and again, it's a subscription commerce business. So basically, today all of the sales that we make are a subscription, easily paused and canceled, but we definitely have that that revenue, the repeat revenue is fantastic, and it's helped us to grow kind of exponentially, relative to, maybe a product that might be sold offline in the stores. That said, we are looking to launch an e-commerce function on our site this quarter, which would allow at least current subscribers to add single products to their cart. And then that ladders up to you got a dog. There's Pet Plate.
I was waiting for a delivery, and here it is.
Yeah. So the the idea
let's take a pause.
Sure.
She's gonna keep barking.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're giving me too much information. Because these are some questions that I wanted to ask you. I'm trying to think of where I can pause you. Because there's some things I wanted to touch on. How did you decide on the I'm going to ask you these questions once she's done barking. How you decided to get into these the human grade pet food business? What was unique about that?
Sure.
Why you were investing so much into like Freshly and Daily Harvest, the subscription market? Yeah. And then I want to get into Ronaldo. My problem is I don't know where I'm going to be able to edit you out with her barks on there because you're crap.
Do you want to just go back to where I said at Brand Project we invest in? We have the thesis is to invest in subscription businesses, and that we invested in, and then I said we invested in Pet Plate and maybe cut there.
Yeah, let's try that.
I mean, I get up to like.
You know what? This dog never barks or anything until someone knocks on the door.
Yeah, actually, even going to like where I get to like I joined the company as CEO in April 2017, so coming up on 3 years, and then we could pause there.
Yeah, that's good.
Kind of brings us to the present that I'm now the CEO of the a Pet Plate.
That's good. Yeah, let's do that.
Okay.
So what were you? So how would we segue into this? God, I don't want to start over. We're already going 5 minutes.
What about if you maybe just when I say so, it's coming up on 3 years, and now I'm the CEO of Pet Plate. Why didn't you cut there and then ask the question? So what was it about subscription commerce that interested you as an investor?
Good. Let's do that.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's take a step back. When you were doing investing, what drew you to the subscription food business, and then let's talk about what kind of led you down that path to the human grade pet food market, which is kind of unique in itself.
Yeah, well, look, we had seen the growth of e-commerce over the past decade, right? It's just ballooned, and it's like the idea of being able to sell a product, a disposable product or consumable product that just inherently needs to be reordered, just the stickiness of that model really appealed to us as investors. It really does create this kind of exponential growth effect if you have good retention. And with Freshly and Daily Harvest in particular, we really saw extremely loyal customers that were interested in getting that product over and over again. That kind of led us to think, well, what are the other categories where people need to replace that product on a daily basis, sometimes even twice a day, and where retention would naturally be high. And dog food is what really hit us, because you need to feed your dog twice a day, every day, no matter
what.
And they're creatures of habit. You're actually better off not switching their diet. Like you can once in a while. But when you do, you have to transition them slowly, which is what we advise every one of our customers to do when they're coming on to Pet Plate. And then if it works for the dog, it's really better for their digestive system not to create too much variety. I mean, you can move in between proteins, but you really shouldn't be feeding your dog raw one day, dehydrated the next day, freeze dried the other day. I mean, you got to pick a lane and stick with it. And that's just the way dogs, work. And so it just inherently lends itself to being a very sticky product if it works. I mean, we still have customers in the very first cohort, which we date back to May of 2017, buying from us because, again, unlike babies, which we looked at a little bit into the baby food category, dog's lifespan, while it's not as long as humans, it's like a lot longer than, a baby, right, which grows out of a certain type of food. Dogs will,
so the baby ages out of that, where the dog is your dog, and you hopefully, knock on wood, have your dog for 15 years. So that's great. Exactly. So yeah, because the thing I was going to address is about the nature of the subscription business, in that you have churn, and you have, especially in the food box businesses, we've done a bunch of podcasts about HelloFresh, Blue Apron, and all those, in that you just get to the point where you're like, you're either burned out, or you're going, this costs too much money, or whatever.
Right.
But conversely, if you're talking dogs or babies, well, you don't stop feeding your baby, and you certainly don't stop feeding your dog. So you basically took that approach, where it was like, what would what would give you the least amount of product
Correct.
churn. It wasn't that, oh, I'm into dog food, but it was mostly just from a pure business.
Right. Retention, it means everything in this sort of business because you have a lot of upfront customer acquisition costs that you're trying to amortize over time. So the idea is, you get them in through like a promotion, a discount on the first box. Really, it's a way of sampling the product because you're not in store to do that. But then you need that repeat, order pattern in order to recoup that initial customer acquisition cost. And then obviously over time, you get to the lifetime value that you're trying to achieve. So yeah, I mean, the dog food definitely made sense in that regard. And then the other thing is that, one of the inherent difficulties with meal kits, sort of the original meal kits, the Blue Aprons of the world, is that they require a fair amount of work, right? I mean, they're trying to take a lot of the work out of the process by providing the ingredients and the recipes, but you still have to cook it.
Right.
And what we've seen, and there's a common thread through all of the companies in the brand project portfolio, is that the products that our founders deliver are really either ready to eat, ready to heat, maybe ready to blend, but that's like the most complicated it gets. In the case of our dog food at Pet Plate, the food is absolutely ready to eat. You can just literally take the lid off the cup and feed your dog the food right out of our cup, or you can put it into their dog bowl, or if you want to serve it warm, you can pop that cup in a microwave for 30 seconds just to take the chill off. But the idea being that we're not asking you to cook, right? We're sort of trying to make this as easy as possible. And not only is the food, ready to eat, but like obviously having it delivered to your door means you never really have to worry about running out of food and going to the wherever you would normally buy dog food, it typically is quite a heavy load, right? I mean, unless you have a really teeny tiny dog, it's bulky and it's heavy, and it's just not a fun thing to buy, especially since you're going to have to buy that same thing over and over and over again. It's like a never ending situation. So there's just it just checked a lot of boxes for us when we thought, because the key is the platform is subscription. So you really have to know that there's like a need for that subscription, or you might as well just be an e-commerce site.
Yeah, no, I think it's great, and I really appreciate your explanation for that, because it was one of those things where it's like, well, how do you go from doing this type of business to getting to pet grade dog food? And it really was more of a business decision. So let's now get into Pet Plate itself. How do you onboard a customer? Like, you have a customer that is interested.
Mm-hmm.
Do you do a sampler kit, or is it just straight up subscription? And how do the subscriptions work? Are there different tiers? Because I was poking around a little bit on the site, but I figured
Sure.
I'd let you explain directly.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So the way it works is we target our customer prospect, online or offline, depending on the case, with, digital ads or influencer content. Occasionally we'll do an event and people will learn about us that way. We'll hand out a little brochure with a promo code. And the idea is, instead of delivering a trial box, we just discount that first box so that it's just more appetizing, and it's a money back guarantee. So you kind of can't lose with that. And we do start with a subscription, but it's just to pause or cancel. It's something that the consumer controls on their own through their account page. They don't need to call in or write in. They just go to their account page and they click a button if they don't want that next delivery to arrive. So for us, the reason we do that, John, is really just because it's better for us to assume they are going to want it than that they're not, and have them just, put it on pause or cancel it if it doesn't work for them, as opposed to them having to come back a second time and kind of repeat the process and sign up for a subscription.
Right. So it's more frictionless. And also from your end, you don't have to create sample size or have different levels of subscriptions. Right. You're giving them the same product, and you're giving them less of the reason to say, well, I just want to try it out. But it's like, now they've got full size portions, and they can just keep going from there.
Well, and to your point, we did actually at one point, when we first started, pretty early on, we did try the concept of a trial box, selling the customer less food in that first box. That was one model that we looked at. And the thing that was not, kind of, desirable to the consumer is that then on that first box, they weren't really getting the true experience of what their box would look like on an ongoing basis. So they really didn't know, like, if they get the second box, it would be the full size box, but maybe they had some issues with the amount of food they were getting. So we just didn't want to change it up on them. And that's again why we went with the sort of first box discount strategy. Just to clarify, though, we do have two different types of subscription. I think this is an important one because this is probably a principle that could lend itself to other subscription commerce brands, which is we offer a full plan, which is, you know, you love this and you want your dog to eat human grade dog food all the time, and maybe just, you know, supplement with a treat, and that's that you can get our full plan. Or we have a topper plan, which is something that, you know, is known in the dog world, which is that, you know, you might have a core diet that consists of, you know, a dry food, but you want to top it off with some fresh food. You know, there's
And that's
many.
called that's referred to as a topper. So
So
you have dry food and then you put the wet food on top. Is that what
exactly,
that is? Okay.
and that's a you know, concept that is universally known in the dog world, but our version of that is just it allows you to sometimes, you know, consumers will want to kind of feel out the whole fresh category, and so it allows them to kind of ladder up to eventually a full plan. Other people say, you know what, this type of food, you know, I want my dog to have that existing diet, but I do want to supplement it with fresh, so that allows for that. So it allows for a lot of versatility, the topper plan. And about 20% of our business is topper.
Awesome. So let's take a step back and talk about, his name's Ronaldo, right?
Yes.
Let's talk about how you met Ronaldo and
Yeah.
what his background is and how he got into the fresh pet food business.
Yeah. So Ronaldo Webb is the founder of Pet Plate. His background is that he, MIT grad, McKinsey consultant, was overworking at L Catterton Growth on the ops side. Happened to work in the pet food category there. Was doing a lot of like lean manufacturing, other supply chain type optimization work for some of the L Catterton portfolio companies, and really got a peek inside what mainstream dog food is all about. And it occurred to him that there was really an opportunity to disrupt that category and come out with something that is just a much better quality, much, you know, healthier product. And so, having a dog, he decided to start cooking for his dog, and you know, the response was terrific. I mean, the dog just, you know,
And the dog's
gobbled
name
it up.
is Winston, correct?
Winston, yeah.
Yeah, I've seen
And
some of the videos.
and then, you know, his friends and family caught on to him, you know, the fact that he, you know, this young like bachelor, you know, living in a city, like cooking for a dog, and they cracked up and said, well, why are you doing it? And he explained, and they said, well, we'd love to try it on our dog. And what was interesting to him was that it wasn't just that the dogs liked it, you know, that they enjoyed eating it. It was that the pet parents reported some significant improvements in the dog's health. So very, very specific, like dog used to have itch like crazy, doesn't do that anymore.
Yeah.
Tear stains, you know, where the ducts get like clogged, went away. Didn't do anything else but feed them your food, and now that like that's gone. And like, you know, it went on and on, and like
Yeah, like some of the dogs like stink from their diet, like they just because they're
yeah,
eating
all
poor
kinds of
food.
things like
Yeah.
bad, you know, poor energy, you know, overweight, like, and they were just seeing visible results in a couple of weeks, and then over a couple of months, we're like, wow,
It's
Ronaldo,
like a different
I
dog, right?
yeah, I'm saving money because I'm not going to the vet as much. I'm not buying all this, you know, like
Uh,
prescription stuff. So he was like, wow, there's probably a real business here. And so he did leave his job in 16 and went, you know, did a test market in the city, like to try to develop a proof of concept, and made the food with a couple of people in a commercial kitchen in Brooklyn, and hired bike messengers to just deliver it locally. And when he decided to start raising some outside capital, and he had met with Brand Project, what we saw was a very high, going back to the retention, just a very high retention rate. You know, even if it was a small sample, you know, just one market, that repeat purchase was higher than we'd ever seen in human food. And we're like, that's where it all kind of the dots started to connect. And we're like, this is a company we want to be in.
and at that point, so we're talking 2016, and there was a functioning website. Like how are orders coming in?
Yeah, you know, Ronaldo built a proprietary platform on Ruby on Rails. So he didn't go with like a Shopify solution, which is what
Oh
a lot
well.
of companies do. He had just enough tech, I guess, knowledge to make himself dangerous. And he said, let me kind of do this in the kind of build it from scratch the way I want it. And part of that was because it was a subscription business. So if it were e-commerce, probably an off the shelf would have just worked fine,
Right.
especially for the first couple of years. But as it was back then, subscription commerce, not a lot of off the shelf. He felt the need to build something on his
And
own.
he had to get the user flow just right. So he said,
Exactly.
forget it, I'll just build it myself.
Exactly. And then he did bring in a CTO later that year. Actually, Brand Project made the intro, and that gentleman is still very much involved in the day-to-day of the business, on, running our technology. So it's been great. But, that proprietary platform has really, really worked well for us, because as we started to test and learn and we kept getting, new consumer insights, and we wanted to pivot, change the checkout flow, change the algorithm, change the portioning. I mean, all these things constantly, kind of you have to toggle in order to get it right. We always had that flexibility with our platform. It's an extremely scalable platform.
And you're still on Ruby on Rails.
Yeah.
Wow, that's impressive. Let's see. I was going to ask some tech questions, so we're right in there. So you say you have a full-time CTO, your development team, because this is an e-commerce podcast. Let's talk about that for a little bit. Like,
Sure.
You use developers, you have developers on staff, or are they farmed out, or what's that layout?
Yeah, currently our developers are farmed out. So we've had a front-end developer in the UK that we started working with in 2016 and have never looked back. I mean, the guy is just terrific. And it's interesting that you might think like the time difference, the geographic distance, not a problem. Actually kind of works to our advantage, just we get more hours out of the day. We also work with some back-end developers in Costa Rica. That's more of a new relationship, but we've worked with groups in Portugal and different countries. That sort of fluxes up and down depending on the need. Right now we have some e-commerce development requirements, so we're going to bring some people in from Costa Rica. But the plan is sort of by the second half of this year, we would look to hire at least one in-house developer, as well as an in-house UI UX person.
Yeah, probably like a tech lead and a UX person and things like
Correct.
that, and then just keep farming at your development.
Exactly.
I know because at SUMO Heavy, we're a consulting firm, and we use a lot of overseas development, and it works out great because they're, as we start our morning, they're checking out for the day. We have a team meeting. They go on their way, and then we start our day, and we basically pick up where they left off. So it's a 24/7 cycle.
Exactly.
So it works out great.
Yep.
Let's get into some marketing here. So your ideal customer, I would assume that this stuff is not cheap, because if you compare it to like, your dry bag of dog food, I mean, what is a portion cost for, like, what can a consumer expect to pay for this? And obviously, if we're targeting a higher tier customer, what's your customer acquisition strategy like?
Sure. So, I mean, the price per meal really is as low as about $1.50. That could go up to about $3, maybe sometimes a little bit more, just depending on the size of the dog. So it's really a function of how much food do you need to feed this dog. So if it's a teacup, 2.5 pounds, that's a very different portion size than a Great Dane, 175 pounds. So you get the point. So there is a range, but like on average, we say price per meal is somewhere around $2.50, $3. And that is more expensive than like a kibble, and probably even a bit more than a premium kibble, but it's certainly a lot less expensive than like a raw food or a freeze-dried food. So fresh food is by no means the most expensive. It's sort of in the middle. And so it's a comfortable positioning, given that there's such a trend right now towards the humanization of pets. There's really an overwhelming need for like more premium products in the market, to satisfy the current, like the modern pet parent. And our target audience, it's interesting, it kind of falls into two pretty distinct groups. So one is what we'll call the older millennial, who is typically they have a life partner already, but they haven't had kids yet, and they treat their dog as their first child or their starter child. So they're really like enjoying, like, spoiling the dog. They just spend a ton of time with the dog, and a lot of these people live in cities, and so they have to hire people to help with the dog. It really kind of feels like sort of having a child. And so the idea of feeding your dog either food that you recognize that is similar to like the way you eat, meaning all natural, fresh, real meat and vegetables, like it resonates with that target audience. And then the second group that's probably even a little bigger than the older millennial is the empty nester. So these are people who their kids have flown the coop, they've got like a
grandbaby
they're trying to fill, right, and they want to bring that dog into the house, have a little more the company companionship.
Mm-hmm.
And they have a little more time and a little more disposable income, because again the kids are out on their own now, and they're oftentimes real dog people. So this is not their first rodeo. They've had a dog probably when they had little kids, but they didn't have the time, the money, or the energy to spend the way they can today, nor were there the options. These options didn't exist 10, 15 years ago. So, these premium options. So they're really excited about the ability to do kind of, a little differently this time. And they're really, really passionate, and it's great. And then, in between, there's the couple that has a couple kids and they're busy, and we do get some people in that category, but I would just say the other two groups are far more engaged at this point.
Yeah, people are definitely passionate about their pets these days. And I always tell people, I said, if you're like trying to poke around and figure out a business to get into, do something either that you target rich people, which are a pain in the neck, or pets, because people, no matter what happens in their life, they'll cut back, they'll cancel their Netflix, but they're not going to stop pampering their dog. So
recession proof.
Either start a pet food business or, some kind of pet sweaters or something.
Yeah.
So we've defined your perfect customer. What's your acquisition strategy? Like where are they coming from?
Yeah, look, it's a full funnel conversion methodology where you're trying to create the brand awareness at the top of the funnel, reach as many eyeballs as you can, and that often is online. It would be your usual suspects: Facebook, Instagram, the search engines, Google, Bing. And then, you sort of kind of start to go down the funnel, and now you're trying to get people to be more engaged. So you're looking at, influencers and affiliates that will put some context and provide that third party validation around the product. And then as you go further down the funnel, you've hopefully now captured an email address. So you have the ability to have that one-on-one dialogue with the customer. We can even dynamically populate the customer's name, their dog's name, depending on how much information we've captured from the prospect on our site. And you really get into a dialogue with the customer. And that is, kind of, we own those channels. So, you hope that as they go through that funnel and come out the other end, you've blended your paid marketing with your non-paid, and you come out in a good place from a CAC perspective. And so we're always looking at pulling lots of different levers so that on balance, we have a healthy acquisition cost.
Yeah. And as we said, it's a very passionate audience. So what has been, if you had to, name the top channel for your acquisition, where do you get the most leads from?
I'd say the most leads today still come from Facebook and Instagram.
Okay.
Just looking at volume, but we're by no means dependent on Facebook the way we were, let's say, at the beginning, and probably even relative to other companies. And I think that we have such rich content, whether it's the visual of the dog, doing something cute, or, the pet parent hugging their dog. There's a lot there that we can play off of and not be so heavily reliant on, buying every, new customer. So we definitely leverage that. And, we do really look for opportunities where we can get some, earned media, in PR. So, it's, I think, the way to look at it is just over time to try to become less and less dependent on Facebook. But for sure, today it's still where we can get the biggest bang for our buck in terms of reach.
Yeah, you can't get away from Facebook just yet.
Right.
It's a common complaint. Hold on a second. What is this message here? The free meeting. What is this crap?
Did you have it set for 45?
I don't know. Brett, are you seeing this message? Free meeting will end in 10 minutes. Brittany?
It actually, when I was going to make the meeting, it said that I couldn't make it from 2 to 3, but that's never happened before. So I was just like, oh, maybe that's just a weird thing that it's saying.
Well, I don't want it to end while we're in the middle of speaking.
Yeah.
Gertrude, what is your email?
Gertrude@petplate.com.
That is easy to remember.
You'll edit that.
Yeah, no, that won't be enough. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to stop this recording. I'm going to send you another invite.
Start over.
We'll just pick it up. Yeah, we'll just pick it up. All right, so I'm going to quit this right now and then just look for my email and jump on.
Sure. Got it. Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.